Hello and welcome to the Society with Barrister Fatma Shaheen at PTB World. Now, there was this time in the Pakistani society where book reading and book reading culture, so to speak, was considered to be a very visible landmark of the educated lot. But over a period of time, unfortunately, we've seen that this entire trend has been fading away. Why is that the case? This is exactly what we'll be talking about in our today's show. We'll be talking about the fact that why young people are more prone to reading from their telephone screens, or for that matter from their laptop screens, as opposed to sitting down and reading from a book. How have the authors, how have the Pakistani writers, a taste in picking up the topics that they choose to write on evolved over a period of time, and how do we see these trends evolving for the better and bringing about positive social change in Pakistan? We'll be delving upon all these very important issues, and to do that, let me introduce you to my today's panel. My first panelist for the show today is Meher Hussain, who's an author and a journalist. Assalamu alaikum, Meher, and welcome to the show.
Walaikum salam, Fatma. Thank you so much for having me.
You're most welcome. My second panelist for the show today is Sabdezar Irfan, who's an illustrator and a writer. Assalamu alaikum ji, and welcome to the show.
Walaikum salam. Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. And my third panelist for the show today is Ms. Zara Hamid, who's an author. She's a mental health activist and a poetess too. Assalamu alaikum, Zara, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Fatma.
You're most welcome. Meher, I would like to start the show with you. I was going through this report which states that the international organization came to the conclusion that reading culture is not only deteriorating, in Pakistan generally, but world over. And this is something which we see reflecting not only in educational institutions, but at a community level as well. So as a very distinguished author yourself, what reasons do you attribute to this?
There are many reasons for why reading has diminished globally, particularly in Pakistan.
Right.
So, world over, we've seen development take place. We've seen advancements in technology. But unfortunately, the written word has suffered greatly due to numerous reasons, which include social, political, economic reasons. Within Pakistan, it's so sad. We've had such a rich literary history.
Right.
Our publishing industry has always been very strong. The written word has such a strong presence. However, due to social political reasons, we've seen the written word suffer, badly so. That's not to say that it has been eliminated completely. It's just that our storytelling, there's no lack of stories in Pakistan, but there is a severe lack of storytelling. And the medium through which stories are told has changed as well. So we've seen
this is something so relevant that you're pinpointing, basically social, political, the way we put it. And I think times have also changed now. Maybe when we were growing up, like when I was growing up, reading a book was like part of my routine. Now people have so many different things to do. They can go out, they can watch a movie, they can, hang around with friends, as opposed to just reading a book. So would you want to add something to that? I think you would have the youth narrative to this, because I think the reasons why I at least see young people not reading a lot of books these days is also because of the fact that I think there's a lot of pressure on them from schools, because of which I think they don't give that value or they don't have that interest towards books.
Absolutely. I think even if I'm not talking about the kind of pressure that we're put under, it's just the fact that everything around us is so overwhelming that the second you find a spare moment, you'd just rather lie down, do nothing. It's become more of a thing that when I have free time, I just want to do nothing. Doing nothing has just become, the biggest thing there is to do. And it's also like when you use these devices a lot, it's like scientifically proven that your attention span deteriorates. And then when I was getting back into the habit of reading, because for a period of time I wasn't reading, it really took a lot of energy out of me to focus. I would read the same page over and over and find that I wasn't really paying attention. So you kind of have to retrain yourself,
Right, your point is noted. But coming to you, Zara, I think in this regard, we must also talk about the possible role of parents and, school teachers when it comes to inculcating that culture of book reading in students.
Absolutely. As a parent of a 13 and a 12-year-old, and as somebody who grew up reading books, I just feel it's really important for parents to inculcate that habit in children. Absolutely, we don't want to, not have them use technology, but we have to do technology with responsibility.
Right.
I think it's very important that we create an environment of book reading, whether it's in English or in Urdu, around our children.
Do you do that with your own children?
Yes, I do. I do. I've been reading stories to them since they were children, and they've grown up with a big library of books around them. And then we visit the library, we, buy books, we buy old books as well. So I think it's really up to parents to sort of, push their children
in that
gently,
direction,
in
exactly.
that direction.
Because a lot of times, we see, Zara, and I think this is something on which all of you would agree with me on this, that if parents are reading, then they in turn pass on that culture as well. Because a lot of times, I see it's just in the genetics too. But I think teachers here also have a very important role to play.
I think it's society at large. You see society and what you're putting out there, right? Society has changed dramatically in Pakistan, and it changes with every generation. Every 10 to 15 years, we've seen a new Pakistan emerge, a different form of entertainment come out, or some new interests evolve amongst the youth. But I think what we need to do, Fatma, is support our writers, create a literary industry, invest in your authors, create literature festivals, organize panels where the public has access to authors, and nurture your writers. And we have to promote our own work.
And make people aware of the same,
That's the thing,
because
PR,
I think it's
marketing,
exactly.
all
it's
these
two
things
ends of
matter.
the same spectrum.
And it's very important that we own the books that are coming out from within Pakistan by our Pakistani authors.
And I think you're doing a great job on that, given that, you're giving so many women that platform to publish their books, on which I would want you to comment on your own book as well. We understand that you've written this really interesting, kind of a book on Pakistan's fashion and pop culture. So tell us more about that.
Absolutely. This is Pakistan, a Fashionable History. It is written by myself and my co-author Saad Sarfaraz Sheikh. This was basically, Fatma, an attempt to look at Pakistan's history through a different lens. Generally speaking, whenever people talk about Pakistani history, they're talking about a political lens or a strategic lens or the vested interest. But
also I think the test then is very myopic, Meher.
It's
just about the designers, it's just about the glitz and glamour.
Absolutely.
There's nothing more substantive about it.
And we haven't understood our social, cultural history. And so one of the defining features is fashion. And fashion does not just mean what you're wearing or what your lipstick shade is. It's also about how you're thinking, how you're feeling, how society is living.
Right.
And to understand society, you have to understand fashion.
Fashion, exactly. I think it's that one, way in which you can express yourself out there.
Absolutely.
You can put yourself out there. So what were your findings when you wrote this? Because I do know that you interviewed quite a few celebrities, fashion icons.
We interviewed the original cultural flag bearers of Pakistan. So we're looking at the designers, we're looking at the photographers, the journalists, the models, the makeup artists, the stylists, magazine publishers. And I'll tell you one thing, Fatima, Pakistan has no lack of talent. Pakistan has no lack of talent. We are such a brilliant nation. We're full of originality. But I think it comes down to society to own it, to accept it.
To accept it, and also to actually highlight it, like you yourself stated, basically the way you did it, you looked at Pakistan's history and culture from a fashion lens. Now something that is very different and something which you don't see in the routine magazines, because it's all about looking good, dressing up for parties, getting your pictures at the right place. So I think the writer needs to have that deep insight as well. Right, Meher, your point is noted, but coming to, I think you've also, made that basically leap of taking up such an important social issue which does exist in a Pakistani society, that of divorce, that of dissolution of marriage, especially when it comes from, a male, and how it in turn impacts the female in the marriage. So tell us more about this initiative. What motivated you to write on a topic which, a lot of writers might just not have taken up?
I think when I set out to write this, the idea was not to talk about something that people were not talking about. It was not from the point of view of discovering a new topic. It was about talking about something that is happening day in, day out. It's happening in everybody's life and in every relationship. The idea of attachment and codependence exists and nobody talks about it. And having been through it myself, I feel like I always used to wonder that there's something wrong with me and nobody talks about it, and then there might be other people who are feeling this way but nobody says it. So we talk about depression and we talk about anxiety, but we use them as buzzwords. We don't really talk about what really is the issue, right? And then I've always been fascinated with the idea of there being like an in-between space, because more often than not in life there is no black and white, there is no right and wrong,
There has to be some gray
area. And more than has to be, that's just how it always is, you
Of
know?
course, especially when emotions and relationships
Exactly.
are involved,
Yeah.
because you know you can't just put everything, quantify everything so clearly.
Exactly.
But what I found really interesting about your book was, on which I would want you to deliberate, is the fact that you know you speak about the psychological and emotional impact divorce has on a woman. But what about men? Because they are also part of the society. So I think it's only fair that you know you cover their plight as well.
As human beings, we tend to want to define things and to put things in compartments. So I'm not trying to say that the man is at fault or the woman is at fault. As a woman, I can really feel that it resonates with me. You know, I'm not married and I've never been, but I still feel like a lot of problems that my protagonist is facing as a woman are problems that all girls are feeling.
Especially
you know?
when they are in a marriage.
Exactly.
Exactly.
We are just raised in a way that we always seek validation through the relationships that we have with others.
You should not come from others around you, should come from within.
Of course.
Definitely.
And we often tend to just, you know, view ourselves from other people's eyes and to say that my importance in this world is the sum of my importance in the lives of so-and-so
My
people.
husband, my children,
Exactly.
whoever. And I think that's
Yeah.
a very different way to look at things, and definitely a more empowering one as well.
Absolutely.
Zara, you've also touched upon such an important topic in our society, that of mental health, through your poetry. So tell us about your journey about that, because I also know that you actually run this Instagram page in which you're very actively having these conversations too.
So I am bipolar 2 and I was diagnosed as bipolar 2 at the age of 35.
Right.
I've been in therapy since I was 6 and I talk very openly about being bipolar, and I think it's very important to talk about mental health in Pakistan. I think we, you know, we always talk about and we have empathy towards different diseases. When we talk about, you know, if somebody has a heart condition, if somebody has other conditions. But when it comes to mental health, we are always told to sort of not talk about it,
Right.
to not take ownership of it. And I think when you take ownership of the fact that you are suffering from something, it loses its power over you.
Of course.
And you
that way
become-
you're able to crush it, because you know you need to talk about things which you're told not to talk about. That's at least how I look at it.
That's
Bilkul.
society silencing
Of
you.
course.
And I think Zara's book, which is Pakistan's first book on mental health in the form of poetry, was
Right.
very brave, because she said, let's not just talk about it, let's put it out there in a written form.
You actually, you know, try to make it more poetic that way. And I think that's more impactful too, in a way, because when you're doing such different things, which different mediums, they leave a bigger impact on the reader.
Absolutely. I think, you know, poetry is something that comes from the heart. And I think that a lot of people can benefit from writing poetry or writing about their thoughts. You know, we should encourage children to journal, and I think that can lead them to sort of, you know, write about their experiences, how they're feeling, whether it's in a poetry form, whether it's in a story. So really it begins in the childhood, and I think then as you grow up, it sort of cultivates and grows. And I think the poems have also, you know, sort of been with me since I was a child, and now at, you know, in my 40s, I feel comfortable enough and I'm supported enough by my family and my children and my husband that I can talk openly about it.
And I think this is a very important point that you've raised. Support from family, that is also very important. Secondly, the fact that, you know, poetry has that therapeutic effect on you. It soothes you, it calms you. In fact, in the Western jurisdictions, we also see the fact that, you know, poetry therapy is seen as a means of treating people with mental health illnesses. So do you feel, is that something that which we can adopt here in the Pakistani society?
I think it's absolutely a very viable space, because poetry is a, you know, poetry therapy and art therapy, theatre therapy, all of these things are places where people can express how they're feeling in a creative way, in a way which creates dialogue, in a way in which we can create, you know, better thinkers and better writers. So absolutely, I think poetry therapy is something that can be done on a mass level in Pakistan. Because again, we have such a rich history and tradition of poetry in our country.
Right.
And I think over time that has dwindled. But it's really, really, you know, we have people like Meher, we have people in the printing industry who are supporting poetry. Meher is one of the only people
and then
I
people
know.
like you yourself who are
Yeah,
actually writing it out and using it in a, such an atypical kind of a fashion, but something which actually has value at the end of the day. And this is something which dates back to the 19th century, because if you remember, there was this very famous doctor, Dr. Benjamin Rush. He used to use poetry therapy
Yes.
to actually treat his patients,
Yeah,
I remember.
yeah.
Yes, you
But
wanted to add something to
You
that.
see, Fatma, what Sadhguru and Zara are also doing is that they're opening up dialogues, they're opening
Right.
up creative space that was so, not just lacking, it was very closed. So for them, they're sort of pushing for creative space and they're talking about issues that have been silenced for so long.
Right.
So the idea is that through the written word, let's open up space. If people don't want to talk about it, all right, let's not completely shut it down, but let's find another means of discussing it. If it happens through the written word, nothing like it, especially given that Pakistan has such a rich literary tradition, especially in poetry.
Right, exactly. And also not only that, I think it has so many other benefits too, not only opening dialogue, being the trendsetters that way, allowing poetry to actually be a means of therapy.
Absolutely.
And also maybe for a person like you, actually de-stressing, you know, considering that you say that you suffer from bipolar disorder too. So I think for a lot of people who I personally also have had the benefit of knowing, they say that, you know, when they write things out, it's a way of them, you know, kind of connecting.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's a way of them basically revitalizing themselves. So there's so many positive effects of
And
it.
connecting with themselves,
Connecting with themselves, with the
others.
society.
Yeah.
I just like to add that any form of creative pursuit is cathartic, you know, just by virtue of being creative. And everybody, we are just, humans are made this way. We need outlets, right? So if a person isn't writing or reading or, you know, painting, they're still doing something that is letting out whatever they're holding inside of them. It's just a way for you to let out some of whatever you've been internalizing.
Yes,
You
it's
know,
a basically way of letting loose
Yeah,
at the end of the day.
absolutely.
Just
Absolutely.
detoxifying your entire
Exactly.
soul.
And it's a different form of entertainment.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
the written word doesn't have to be boring. It
Of
doesn't
course.
have to be dull. It can be creative. It can be fun. It can be experimental. You know.
Right, Meher, and coming to in this regard, I think we must also talk about your book, and in one of your interviews you talk about the fact that, you know, the fashion industry has a lot to offer if it cleanses itself up. So what are the things you feel it needs to cleanse itself from?
I think the biggest issue at the moment that we're looking in the industry is the problem of fast fashion. You see, if we look at the original designers, Seher Sehgal, Maheen Khan, Banto Kazmi, Noorjahan Bilgrami, Faiza Sami, these were ladies, these were women who went out into the field and they sought out indigenous craft. These were women who defied society. They went out and looked out for craftspeople at a time when women were expected to sit at home and look after children. And what they did was, Fatma, they created a sense of community amongst the craftsmen and the urban people.
Your recommendation then for the fashion industry would be that when we talk about CSR, it should just not be limited to these social causes, that they should have more value and they should also be more geared towards the welfare of their employees, because you see,
Creating-
that is also
yes.
part of CSR.
Creating livelihoods, creating communities, creating connection amongst, we have such a vast socioeconomic gap and it's there for a reason. It's there because we are not connecting with those who desperately need us.
Right.
And if we do not do that, then I do not see what value your work has.
Of course. And I think then we also need to see this in the global context as well, because fashion industry anywhere, you know, we see that it is having, you know, adverse effects on the society. And
Absolutely.
people are fashion giants. Even in Pakistan, if you see,
Of course.
local textile giants, they are owning up to it and they are going eco-friendly that way. So I
They
think
are.
more of such initiatives would be more welcome. And then maybe also when it comes to looking after the welfare of their employees, looking after women issues,
Women issues,
employment
yes.
of women, because I think they are the ones who are being exploited more.
They are being exploited, and I think that's something that certainly the fashion industry needs to tackle. And fashion also needs to document its own history, its own journey. I mean, we look at the West and we look at Vogue. Vogue has their own series of books on their issues, on the designers they've featured, the designers, these big houses, whether it's Gucci, whether it's Dior, whether it's Prada, they all have their own books documenting their designs, and it should be given back to the youth of Pakistan through educational institutes, through lectures, through talks, through shows. It should not just be a means of creating economic wealth for themselves.
Of course.
And carrying on, Fatma, from that is that Zara has worked in fashion and Zara can give an insider's perspective. I mean, I'm the outsider here. I was the one who documented it, but she's the one who's been
Please,
part
Zara.
of it.
Absolutely. I worked for over 10 years in fashion journalism. and I've worked to launch fashion magazines like Niche Lifestyle, Paper Magazine from Lahore, as a creative director, as a writer, as an editor. And I feel that fashion has grown a lot and it is evolving, it is changing. Currently, for example, I'm working with the House of Kamya Rukni, and we are also working on books on fashion. I think it's very important that alongside that, we also have diversity in fashion.
Right.
We must show women of all sizes. There should be body positivity.
And this is something which you do see in other parts of the world, because I remember in the New York Fashion Week, which was held some time back, we did have, you know, A+ size models walking the ramp.
We've got, you know, other
Generation
is doing a lot of work.
And then we also have from the routine, the dark skin models making
Yes.
big names for themselves.
Yeah.
too.
Absolutely,
color.
and
Those
that's
which don't,
changed
you know,
too.
strictly comply with Pakistan's definition of beauty.
But that's
Yeah.
So
subversive.
diversity is really growing.
Right.
And I think right now it's the beginning of that. I mean, I've been wanting to see body positivity in fashion for a long time. And I remember when I started working in media 20 years ago, there was, you know, it wasn't there. But now we are slowly watching it evolve and it's growing. And I think part of it is also, you know, the Instagram, part of it is being exposed to women of all
I think
sizes.
exposure to internet, technology, and so many globalization, so to speak, at the end of the day, especially with young people like yourself. So I think we should also talk about your book and the issues that it is raising. You told us about the fact that, you know, it is talking about the dissolution of marriage, how that in turn impacts both men and women, especially when it comes to their psychological makeup. But, you know, there are so many other socially relevant issues which do arise, especially when a divorce does happen in Pakistan, be it the custody of children, who it will go to for that matter, or for that matter, you know, how the property and the assets will be divided. Do you not feel that, you know, writers like yourself, they need to give heed to such issues too?
I think it absolutely needs to be talked about, because those are the real things, you know. That's what makes and breaks situations. That's what makes, that's a lot of what makes divorce so messy. The reason why I chose to talk about the emotional aspect of it is because everything stems from the self. And I feel like if you cannot resolve the turmoil within, you cannot begin to resolve everything outside of it.
Of course.
And even if you do, mostly what we do in our society, or even world over, we can say, we deal with the external elements. You know, we deal with who the kids go to, who the things go to, and then the damage that's done inside, that's what stays. And that's what we pass on through generations, you know. And a lot of what I'm writing about is trauma that I've inherited.
It has really evolved and changed. And I think COVID has also put us in a position where our relationships, where the time we spend with our family, with our children is being sort of, you know, it's being examined closely. And I think it's also sort of put a lot of partners in touch with how they're feeling about each other. And a lot of people have sort of gravitated towards a divorce
Right.
or separations. And I have seen that personally. My husband's a lawyer, and he, you know, we have seen a lot of divorce cases.
Of course, and not only in Pakistan, in fact,
custody
world over
battles.
too. But I
World
think
over,
the way you are
definitely.
explaining this, that, you know, everything goes back to your own identity, it goes back to your own self, that is something which is very important and paramount. Because until unless you're, you know, validate yourself, all these
Yes.
other issues, they would be very preliminary and ancillary that way.
Personal
But why
growth.
did you choose to write a graphic novel? This is one question that I want to pose to you, because it is a very different and a new way to communicate, especially with the Pakistani masses who are actually quite new to this concept.
Yeah, I think that was a completely personal preference for me. I've been an artist and a writer since I was a child, and my aim in anything I do has always to sort of just be able to tell a story. And when I was working on my thesis in my undergrad, I just always really wanted to be able to tell a story which involved my love for art as well as literature. So when I started researching and all of the entire story came to me, I just knew, it just clicked, you know. I was visualizing the story before I was writing it, and I wanted you as a reader to be able to see it the way I saw it. And we see film all the time. We see people making videos, short films, movies, but this is really an art form that I have admired growing up, and having not seen a lot of it around me, directly around me, I just knew that that was something that I really wanted to dabble with.
Right.
we're
And I
also
think it's something,
visual.
it's a very interesting way to reach out to people, to, like you did your bit of poetry, she did graphic novels, and I think you had the heart to actually give both of them platform to do what they wanted to do that way. But I think it's also, you know, a positive change which we must discuss in this show is the fact that when we talk about books, it's just not books per se, it's about communicating with your viewer, and it can be in any way whatsoever, because art as we define it, it's very broad. Meher, you wanted to add something to that?
Yes, I wanted to say, you see, Fatma, we are a visual nation. We love bright colors, we love looking at screens, and of course, the younger lot is perpetually glued to some iPad or mobile phone or the, you know, television. It's very important that our work as writers connects with people. So I thought Sabdazar's work was something that was fresh because it was visual. It was something so different, so unique on multiple levels. It was tackling society, it was tackling a taboo, divorce, it was tackling sensitive issues such as
I think it was tackling identity crisis, which a lot of women don't want to talk about.
Because we're so stunted in
Because
our
a lot of
personal
women
growth.
don't realize they have
They
identity
have one,
crisis.
exactly.
And in Zara's book was also visual, because along with the poetry, she had drawn images which are very strong. There's this one image which has stayed with me of Zara herself sitting in a beautiful garden, and the idea was that as a woman, she's got everything. The garden represents beauty, she has everything, but around her is a wall with barbed wire. You're being stuck in a cage. Ultimately, you can have everything, but if you're stuck within a cage, then what point is all
Then
this beauty?
what's the point of that? Exactly.
So-
And I think in this regard, of course, you know, with due credit to the writers and you as the publisher and a writer in your own right too. But do you think like this is a norm? I do know that, you know, you're leading this women-led publishing house and you are giving, you know, print space to two very accomplished writers and many more, I'm sure. But is this like a norm in the publishing industry that people like them who are new, who are raw, they are given a chance? Because I feel this is a problem with the publishing industry these days in Pakistan.
This is not a norm. This resurgence, you see, publishing has suffered so badly that it is a wasteland. And I'm really, really proud to say that the current resurgence is being upheld by female publishers, not just by myself, but by two other female publishers who've come to the fore, and the authors who are coming forth are also female. And I think I must give credit to the authors for being so brave, for taking on such sensitive issues and tackling them in such creative, mind-blowingly creative ways, that I am hopeful about the publishing industry. And I hope it's going to be different, because this time women are leading it.
Women are leading it, and also more women are in it too,
Absolutely.
basically. And I think whenever you talk about gender equality in the society, in the media, even in the book industry or art, so to speak, you need to keep women along with you. And freedom of expression, when we talk about it, that of course needs to be
Yes.
seen in an entire context.
Yes,
And
I
until
mean-
unless you give women that power to speak their mind and to be themselves, we can't have gender equality in the true sense. Would you agree with that?
I absolutely agree with that. If we look at like a basic breakdown, there's more women in Pakistan than men. So I mean, our voices really need to be heard, you know,
We
perhaps
comprise
even
more
more.
than 50% of the Pakistani population,
So
right?
we need to be heard perhaps even more than the men. And I really feel like I was asked why I did not try to talk about my story from the husband's perspective. And it was not in any way to demonize him. It was just to, as a woman, the experiences that I have internalized will always stay with me, regardless of whether I have experienced divorce or not. It's just something we grow up with. We grow up seeing it around us. We hear about it. We look at it on TV. And then, you know, we just need to talk about it more. And as I said, I don't want to talk about it in a black and white sense. I'm not blaming, I'm not putting blame on him or on her. I'm just talking about how she, as a woman, as a mother, as a wife, lost herself and then needed to find herself to really understand who she was.
And I think in this regard, a very pertinent and relevant question to ask you is the fact that, you know, you're the youngest here on the panel today. You're a young writer. You made your debut through this very book which we've discussed at length. But did you not face any challenges? Because a lot of times I see young writers complaining that, you know, either people don't take them that seriously, or the fact that they aren't paid that much, or for that matter, nobody wants to give them that print space, in the sense that publishers don't pick them up. So what were the challenges that you faced as a young writer in getting your book published in Pakistan?
I think I started off with a lot of apprehensions and this preconceived idea that this book was not going to get anywhere. And as bad as that sounds, that's how it was. My book actually came about as my thesis for my undergrad, And then a lot of people told me that I needed to get it published and that I should try, but nobody really told me how.
And coming to you, Zara, I think in this regard, we must also talk about all these very interesting conversations that you are having on your Instagram medium, and which you've also covered in the course of writing this book of yours on body positivity and body image. So what more do you feel can be done when we talk about having these important conversations and body image and body positivity, which is just not limited to women? Because I personally feel it's too women specific. Now we also need to include men in it.
Body positivity, you know, most people don't even understand what it is. You know, body positivity means being the best version of yourself, whether you're female, whether you're male. It's about, you know, putting your best foot forward, being healthy, being active, being proud of who you are, owning up to your strengths. And I feel that, you know, body positivity is something that I have talked about extensively in my book, The Burning Champa by Diwani Zara. And also I've been talking and having conversations on Instagram, on my page, Diwani Zara, with people from all walks of life. And we are talking about, you know, how it is so important for us from, you know, from the time we are born till our teens, and then as we grow up as young women, men, and also as older ladies, to sort of own up to and actually accept your body for what it is, being proud of it, and being active, being healthy. It's, you know, a lot of people have this criticism with body positivity that, oh, you know, maybe you're advocating being plus size. It is not advocated.
It's just accepting yourself in your own skin, whatever way it is, basically, whether you're fair, you're dark, you're old, you're young, no matter, you know, regardless of how you look. Exactly. It's about celebrating
it's about
yourself.
Celebrating who you are,
and
whether you are,
identity.
you know, whether you are tall, whether you are fair, whether you're not. You know, just diversity is very important, I think. And children, I think, need to understand and respect diversity. It starts with the baby. You know, you have a baby come into a household, and the first thing everybody talks about is whether the child is pretty or not, whether the child is fair enough or not, whether the child is healthy or not, what's the weight, what are the looks, whether the child has light hair. So, you know, we sort of start putting an ideal of beauty on babies, and which I find very, very scary, because I feel no matter who the child is, as long as it's a healthy baby,
of course,
thankfully, you know, you should.
And I think it's putting too much pressure.
Them.
It's putting too much pressure on the parents to that way. So, how particularly did you address these issues in your book?
In my book, I've you know, written poetry about you know, about bullying, about being told to sort of, you know, being told as a young person that I needed to lose weight, about feeling that I have to look good in the eyes of others, when really the only person that you need to look good
is
and
yourself.
Appreciate is in your own eyes.
And this is exactly the mindset that we do need to promote, and I do hope that, you know, other authors follow lead in this regard, because these are very important taboo topics that all of you are talking about, the dark side of the fashion history, you regarding the delusion of marriage and the need to find one's own identity, and then you talking about mental health and body positivity. But coming to you, Meher, and coming towards the conclusion of the show, what relevance do you feel literature today has in our modern society?
Oh, tremendous relevance. There's so much potential for literature. I feel literature is the way forward in Pakistan. At the moment, we are looking at a very young nation that is trying to identify itself, that is trying to find a way forward. And the best way, the most civilized manner to do so, Fatma, is through the written word. And I think Pakistanis nowadays, they're full of hope, they're full of creativity, and they just need an outlet. And what better way than through literature? By creating something by themselves, for themselves, and letting the world know that Pakistan is not what it is as portrayed in the media, but in fact it is talented, it is creative, and it has a lot to offer.
But having said that, you know, since you do have young writers like her on board too, what opportunities do you feel does this literary industry have for upcoming young writers who actually want to, you know, make a social difference through their work?
Definitely, there are so many platforms out there. There are self-publishing platforms, Instagram, social media certainly offers something. There are young people who are now sharing work on Twitter as well through tweets, which I think is absolutely brilliant. it's a stroke of genius. There are so many opportunities out there for people to put their work together, and publishers are up and coming and they're open to it. It's just a matter of finding them, connecting with them, and creating new works that will relate with people.
And I think for young people, I would want to add, they need to be more perseverant that way too, because something which you were earlier telling me that, you know, there were a lot of publishers who did refuse you, who didn't listen to you, but
Rejection
you
is part
finally,
of the game.
rejection is part of
It's not even
life.
about the rejection. It's about the fact that it's like throwing arrows into the dark, you know. You're just ending your work out
But
and
then that
receiving
does
no
amount to
response.
rejection at the end of the day.
Yeah,
You at
yeah.
your end, you don't know that, you know, if you
Yeah.
don't hear from somebody, then, you know, it's a no at the
And
end of the
that's
day.
Yeah.
okay. Rejection should not be taken personally. It's a professional thing.
Of course.
It's not about somebody not liking your work. You have to look at the market. You have to look at the commercial value. You have to understand what's in demand, what's not in demand. You have to understand what is going to sell.
Right.
So it's not a personal thing at all. It's just that there are so many other factors, and the fact that the publishing industry is up and coming again from a wasteland, there's huge risk involved, Fatima, and we have to work with that.
And I think the risk needs to be divided both at the publishers end as well as at the
Absolutely.
writers and the editors end too. Coming to you and coming towards the end of the show, I think one very important thing which you must address and, you know, tell all the viewers from your own experiences as a young writer in Pakistan, what is the do and what are the don'ts of being a young writer, and what is the right way of getting your work published?
So personally for me, I feel like I will never say that there is a specific way to do something because everybody has a different process. Everybody is talking about different things. There is no dearth of stories. As a writer, one thing I will always advise fellow writers to do is to stay true to themselves. Don't talk about what you don't know. Don't try to just go for buzzwords and talk about what you think is in, because if you don't really feel it in your heart, you're not going to be able to, if you can't convince yourself, you cannot convince anybody else. And because I struggled a lot to get my work to be seen, I think one thing I would like to say is that you need to keep trying, and you need to keep telling yourself that if there is silence, that does not mean that's the end. You need to keep knocking on doors till somebody sees what you have put out there with the same eyes that you've looked at it with. And eventually it does happen. It's very difficult right now at this point in time, but if you're true to your process, it will eventually happen for you.
Right, your point is noted. And coming towards you and coming towards the conclusion of the show, we've generally discussed the fact that, you know, you three, all of you have been talking about, you know, issues which people don't, you know, want to talk about, and in that way these have been taboo topics. So how do you see this general trend in Pakistan evolving from talking about the routine, mundane, you know, issues to more socially relevant and, you know, more substantive issues?
It's a very positive change. I think talking about things that we, you know, are told since we were children to sort of, you know, not talk about or to just sort of push it under the carpet. I think talking about those things openly in my book helped a lot of readers. I got feedback from people from all over the world, you know, who read the book, and people in Pakistan, especially women, who felt that, you know, their voice that they had been sort of hiding and not talking about openly, whether it was, you know, depression, whether it was eating disorders, whether it was abuse, whether it was relationships, all of those things were, you know, discussed in the book. And, you know, Meher has given us that opportunity to talk about these things openly. And as I talked in my poems, I also got a chance to illustrate them. And those illustrations, you know, gave another dimension and flavor to the book, and also to, you know, the readers, who I think are very, very important. And so we got very, very good feedback from readers, and also it's giving people, you know, just the chance to share their stories. You know, a lot of people felt that now that, you know, this book is out, that, you know, they too can come forward and write their personal stories.
That is something which is very positive, but do you feel that is this, you know, capable of bringing about like proper, concrete, substantive change? I am sure that, you know, nobody is denying the fact that all of you have been talking about very important taboo topics which otherwise people don't, and for that, of course, we all give you due credit. But is this the right step in the right direction to bring about proper change, to bring about proper substantive change, especially when we talk about positive social change in the Pakistani society?
Well, positive social change in the Pakistani society, especially when it comes to the masses, is very important. People are, you know, are very expressive in Pakistan. They're very emotional, they're very creative, and they all are looking for avenues, whether it is in education, whether it is in theatre, whether it is in therapy,
music,
whether it's in music, in dance. So, you know, all of these are, you know, creative pursuits where people can actually express how they feel, where they, you know, social issues can be talked about openly in a creative storytelling way, you know, that makes it sort of appealing to people.
And I think that's a very valid point that you have raised, because at the end of the day, we have to, you know, consider things not in a vacuum, in fact, rather in a proper context, because we have seen poems, we have seen books being translated into movies, and then movies also being the base on which, you know, laws have been passed and movements have actually taken place. So we do need to see this entire thing in its own context, on which I would like to conclude today's show. Thank you so much, Meher. Thank you so much, Sabzezar, and thank you so much, Zara, for being here with us today. Well, we spoke at length at the evolving book culture in Pakistan, how the preferences of various authors, of writers have changed from, you know, not talking about the routine romance love relationships to talking about more bold, more stark, more strong, and of course more socially motivated causes, be it mental health, be it divorce, be it, you know, the dark side of the fashion industry. This is definitely a change which must be welcomed in the Pakistani, you know, book culture, in the Pakistani writing industry, and this is something for which we must give due credit to the writers, because they, by talking about such issues, are giving other people hope. They are the brave ones who are confronting such issues. They are the ones who are coming out of their comfort zones, and most of all, they are teaching us that we need to talk about the issues which we are told not to talk about. On that note, signing off for today. Until next time, take care and Allah Hafiz.